Greetings, friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara, and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today, we are playing Tyrion Cuthbert, Attorney of the Arcane, and we are on Severed Ties, the case called Severed Ties. Now, if you recall, at the end of the last episode, we were talking and we had theorized that perhaps Beatrice and Harold worked together. Now, this seemed potentially unlikely because presumably Beatrice likes to control everything. Well, Harold definitely had motive and opportunity, but he definitely couldn't have gotten the case exploded on his own. Surely Beatrice helped with that? Let's go ahead and hop in and see what happens in today's episode. All right. All right. Bang the gavel. Court is now resumed for the trial of Beatrice Frege. Let us review yesterday's proceedings. There is much debate over William Frege's inheritance. More specifically, it was unknown whether the defendant had any claim to her father's inheritance. This detail was crucial in determining whether the defendant even had a motive to commit the murder. Luckily, the victim's will was supposedly read earlier today, and it is now a part of the public record. What were the results of the will reading, Mr. Cuthbert? William Frege was planning to leave all of his assets to Jaden von Sanctus, his hopeful son-in-law. However, this was predicated on the condition that Jaden marry the victim's daughter, Leif. And it's clear that Miss Leif will never follow through on this engagement. If the engagement is not made in 6 months, William Frege's assets would be divided among his 3 daughters. I see. So there is no mention of the defendant's disinheritance. Correct, Your Honor. This means that the defendant did have something to gain from the victim's death. Well, now Beatrice has motive. Your Honor, despite the confusion around the victim's inheritance, there is still very little physical evidence that implicates my client. May I remind you that Miriam Frege was not telling the truth in yesterday's proceedings. That itself is extremely suspect. And William Frege was clearly not above manipulation and lying. You can't prove that she knowingly gave false testimony. I'll admit I can't prove that. I'll also admit that there's a lack of apparent physical evidence to substantiate our case, which is why the prosecution would like to call Harold Haraldson to the stand. Lord Haraldson? The sword of spell-eating clearly plays a large role in the murder, and its theft is one of the few pieces of physical evidence in this case. As the gallery's curator, I believe he can further elaborate on how the sword was stolen that night. More specifically, you can find out what he did on the night of the murder. I see. Well, the court would definitely benefit from his insight. Bailiff, please escort Lord Haraldson to the stand. Oh boy. Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. Of course. My name is Harold Haraldson. I'm the owner and curator of the Haraldson Hall of History, located in Holmhareth. That's quite the alliterative occupation. Harold, could you please testify to the court about how you discovered the sword of spell eating was stolen? If it will help. Alright, here we go. I was keeping an eye on my gallery's exhibits when I realized that my familiar hadn't returned. I called to him telepathically, but he didn't respond. I became worried, so I went around the manor to search for him. About an hour later, I returned to the gallery and discovered that the exhibit that held the sword of spell eating was completely destroyed. The artifact was missing, so I reported the crime to the Knights of the Ball, and they activated a discreet lockdown. Luckily, we found the sword and my familiar later that night. So you went to search for your monkey, and that's why you didn't witness the theft? Yes, the thief was probably waiting for me to leave. They must have wanted to commit the crime without anyone seeing them. Or his testimony is completely full of it. His search for Eugene must have been a cover that he's using to hide his actions that night. So how do you prove that? All right. I was keeping an eye on my gallery's exhibits when I realized that my familiar hadn't returned. Are you referring to Eugene? Eugene? Eugene Haroldson, Your Honor. It's the name of the witness's familiar. Yes, Eugene is a spry orangutan monkey. He helps me with my day-to-day. I see. Anyways, you said that he hadn't returned. Does this mean he left you earlier in the night? Yes, he always likes to explore large buildings like Frega Manor, but he usually doesn't leave for that long. Alright, I called him telepathically, but he didn't respond. Now, I want to look at something. We have a thing. Is it spells about find familiar? Let's see. So, duration is indefinitely no... Okay, the caster forms a magical unbreakable bond with the target creature, connecting them to the caster's magic. While this bond exists, the caster can telepathically communicate with the target over any distance. The caster can also choose to see through the target's eyes as long as they concentrate. And lastly, the caster can also cast spells from the location of the target creature instead of their own. Once this bond is formed, neither the caster nor the target can form bonds with any other creature. This bond can only be broken in death. Okay, so maybe we just press the first time through, but I think... I don't know. Does he typically ignore you like that? Sometimes. He's a young boy, so he likes to have his privacy. I try not to pry, but I was wary of what would happen if a noble knight came across him. A nobler knight came across him. He usually knows not to bother people, but you never know what might happen. I became worried, so I went around the manor to search for him. Now, why didn't he look through his eyes? You left the gallery room. Yes, as I said, I was worried that something had happened to Eugene. Where did you go during your search? Eugene usually knows to stay out of people's bedrooms, so I went downstairs and searched for him there. I checked the bathroom, sitting room, and coat room. Then I finally checked the kitchen and pantry. He might have gone there to steal some snacks. But you didn't find him in any of those places. Nope, I didn't. Alright, I think that one might be the one we present on. About an hour later, I returned to the gallery and discovered that the exhibit that held the Sword of Spell-Eaten was completely destroyed. If I recall correctly, the glass was completely shattered. This is despite the presence of several abjuration spells that protected it. Yes, it would have taken an extremely powerful spell to break it like that. As you saw, the glass display was shattered into shards. Unless Harold had a way to dispel that magic, a powerful mage must have destroyed it. Perhaps Harold had Beatrice shatter the glass before she went into the ballroom. And that's possible. We had that, there was a bracelet of intelligence that would basically give you superhuman intelligence. I wonder if maybe he might have used that and gained the knowledge of how to shatter it. I don't know, so we'll see. The artifact was missing, so I reported the crime to the Knights of the Ball, and they activated a discreet lockdown. The Sword of Spell-Eating makes its wielder immune to magical effects. What use would the lockdown have been? Honestly, not much. The wielder would have been immune to the anti-magic fields and the spells that prevented people from leaving. But at that point, the Kingsguard just wanted to activate it for good measure. Luckily, we found the sword and my familiar later that night. His statement just now is missing some details. Well, what details should you ask him to elaborate on? Alright, how did you find the sword? How did you find Eugene? Let's ask about Eugene first. How did you eventually find Eugene that night? After an hour of silence, he finally responded to my telepathic messages. He met up with me in the gallery before we went to search for the sword. So this would have been after the theft was reported. Yes. He would have had to pick up Eugene after he murdered Lord Frega. This must be the alibi they're using to account for the time that no one could see Eugene. Anyways, this detail could be extremely important. Please add it to your testimony, witness. Harold. Yes, of course, Harold. He says that he went around the manor to look for Eugene. Do you think he's telling the truth? Maybe. But his so-called search for Eugene gave him a good excuse to not be seen by anyone. It's a decent alibi, if not without its flaws. You'll just need to poke some holes in that alibi. Alright? I was keeping an eye. Alright. So let's go over. Eugene finally responded to my telepathic messages. I met up with him in the gallery room before they finally found the artifact. Do we have anything that we can say about that? The gallery room. On the night of the murder, Tracker smelled something strange and followed the scent to the hallway north of Beatrice's bedroom. There he saw a flying rat come out of the northern air vent. Tracker barked at this rat and scared it away. When this happened, Rat supposedly dropped the sword of spell eating. Tracker took the sword and brought it back to Beatrice's room. I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily useful. Wounds will heal over time. It was, so the bracelet, this was the Armbands of Intellect. The Armbands of Intellect are an ancient artifact. When worn by a creature, that creature's intelligence would increase beyond the limits of the average human. Legends say it was forged by a member of House Frege to further their study of magic. On the night of the murder, Harold Haraldson discovered that the Armbands of Intellect were also stolen. The glass case holding the armbands weren't shattered, and the armbands were replaced with a very convincing replica. Okay. I don't know if this is the right thing. Let's see. His statement just now is missing some details. But what details should you ask him? Alright. What about the sword? How did you eventually find the sword of spell eating? The King's Guard and I slowly and carefully checked each room in the manor. After about an hour, we finally found the artifact under the bed in the defendant's room. That must be where Tracker hides the sticks that he finds. Now that you think about that, he's probably the one who stole Celeste's sword in the first place. Anyways, this detail could be extremely important. Okay, Alright, but is it? He says that he went around the manor to look for Eugene. You think he's telling the truth? Alright, so what can we do? We need to poke some holes. How can we poke holes in it? I was keeping an eye on my gallery exhibits. I called him telepathically, but he didn't respond. Alright, let's... What if we put the familiar bond? Objection! Yeah, that one's not... Okay, so that's not doing anything. Alright. That's not gonna help. It's gotta be this one. As you probably know, the King's Guard found the sword of spell eating in the defendant's room. Alright, the Sword of Spell Eating is an ancient artifact. When wielded by a creature, that creature and anything connected to them, physically or magically, are immune to all harmful magical effects. Legends say it was forged through a blood contract between a mage and a demon. On the night of the murder, someone used a powerful spell to completely shatter the magically protected glass that was containing it. It was later found in Beatrice Frege's old room. So yeah, that's not really helpful either. What if we do this? Okay. Objection! Yeah, okay. What if we do the other evidence? So what if we add about how did you find Eugene? Alright. So maybe now that will help? Let's see. Alright, we gotta get through all that. Let's see. Eugene finally responded to my telepathic messages. I met up with him in the gallery room before they finally found the artifact. What can we present? On the night of the murder... What else do we have? The artifacts on the display were protected by layers of abjuration spells. We got Celeste's sword. This was also in the room. Someone must have taken it. I don't know. Well, let's see. Is this where we do Tracker's testimony? Objection! No, it's not. Okay, so what do we do here? We've got to do something here. Eugene finally responded to my telepathic messages. I met up with him in the gallery room. Alright, what do we got for the map? Gallery. Okay, so this is upstairs. He's near Beatrice's bedroom, right? And this is... What did he do? Okay, so I'm not sure what we do here. The murderer somehow entered William Frega's study. The servants have been frequently complaining about the sound of rats running through the vent. We have Leif's testimony, the only person he spoke to. Alright, what about this? On the night of the murder, Beatrice finally returned to her home. The meeting didn't end as planned. Alright. So none of this is helpful, I don't think. Artifacts on display. Alright, so Beatrice was not around. The draft was supposedly stolen during the lockdown. I mean, I don't think this is gonna help, right? The familiar bond. No, what is the, okay, so what is the contradiction? Let's look through it again. Keeping an eye on the gallery exhibits when he realized his familiar hadn't returned. Called him telepathically, but he didn't respond. I became worried, so I went around the manor to search for him. An hour later, I returned to the gallery and discovered that the exhibit that held the sort of spell eating was completely destroyed. Artifact was missing, reported the crime, activated discreet lockdown. Eugene finally responded. Oh, but wait. If it's during the lockdown, okay, so that's the hole. That's the hole. How did Eugene respond if it was on lockdown? The lockdown system covers the entire manor. Once activated, it creates magical barriers that prevent anyone from leaving or teleporting out of the building. In addition to this, it covers the entire manor in an anti-magic field. Within this field, any and all magical effects are nullified and disabled. However, anyone physically or magically connected to the sort of spell eating would be immune to the effects of the anti-magic field. Objection! There we go. Alright. Harold, you found Eugene before he went to search for the sort of spell eating. This would mean that happened while the lockdown was still active, am I correct? Yes, as much as I was worried about the artifact, Eugene's safety was far more important. And that's the thing, Harold. You said that after hours of silence, you finally received a telepathic message back from Eugene. What? So that leaves one question. How did you communicate with Eugene telepathically, if you were both within an anti-magic field? What? Harold, in response to the theft, the King's Guard activated the lockdown system to prevent anyone from leaving. That same lockdown system would have placed an anti-magic field over every inch of that manor. That field should have suppressed the telepathic abilities given to you by familiar bond. You wouldn't have been able to speak with Eugene at all. Oh boy. Mr. Cuthbert, are you accusing this witness of lying in his testimony? Hey, Taco Crew, welcome in. Please, Cuthbert is blowing this entire thing out of proportion. Anti-magic field is a resource-intensive spell. We can't assume that they managed to cover every inch of the manor, especially the areas that would only be accessible to a small animal. Miss Tamora, let's assume that Eugene managed to reach some sort of blind spot in the lockdown system. The magic telepathy granted by familiar bond connects two people. I forgot she was the prosecutor. Well, technically, we are playing the prosecutor, and she is still defense. But remember, Celeste did not want to be on the prosecutor side of the courtroom, so we had to swap, so we're on our normal sides. Even if Eugene wasn't affected by the anti-magic field, Harold would be. That's very true. So how did I hear him that night? There's only one answer that makes sense, Harold. You did hear Eugene telepathically, because Eugene was wielding the sword of spell eating. What? That response seemed mighty unknowing of what was going on. So I wonder, did Beatrice use Eugene without Harold's knowledge? I'm sorry, Mr. Cuthbert, but are you saying that the sort of spell eating was stolen by the witness's pet monkey? I am, Your Honor. It's the only way the witness's testimony makes sense. She doesn't have a rebuttal. You should push this while you still have a chance. Harold Haroldson, you were the one who stole the sort of spell eating, weren't you? And what reason would I have to steal something that already belongs to me? It was to take suspicion off of you, because you were the one who had William Frege killed. You staged a robbery and used sort of spell eating to make Eugene invisible. Then you sent him through the manor's ventilation system. Also, you could have him murder William Frege in his study. Well done, Cuthbert. I suppose you can't just stop yourself from pursuing a lying witness. It's what I do best, Miss Tamora. Of course. Witness, do you have anything to say in your defense? It's quite obvious, but I completely refute the prosecution's allegations. He's misguided, but he's just doing his job. You're expecting his thoughts to be hostile like before. So yeah, I'm wondering if he's actually innocent and Beatrice went behind his back somehow. Then do you also refute your statement about Eugene telepathically speaking with you? I know better than to lie on the stand to save myself. I can't explain how it happened, but I stand behind my testimony. Eugene did telepathically contact me during the lockdown. But how did he do it? Okay, yeah, that seems like he's innocent. Wait, so he doesn't know how that telepathic communication happened. Perhaps he overlooked it when he was planning the murder with Beatrice. And that's your position, Cuthbert? That the witness sent a monkey to murder William Frege? It may sound ridiculous, but it's the only thing that makes sense. Actually, I have different ideas, but let's keep going. Or do you have any evidence to refute that, Miss Tamora? No, I fully and wholeheartedly agree with you, Cuthbert. See, that smile makes me think he's definitely innocent. She's just too smug. Because I think she knows Beatrice did it, and she's like in some kind of position of being blackmailed, maybe. I don't know. Wait. Tyrion? Mr. Cuthbert, did you forget that you were prosecuting Beatrice Frege? Your Honor, even as a prosecutor, it's clear that Cuthbert just can't stop himself from finding the true culprit. Wait, I also meant to say that the defendant conspired with the witness to commit the crime. Oh, really? And do you have any proof of this conspiracy to commit? Of course you don't. But even so... Well, let's assume that you did have evidence to prove your statement. If this was really a plot formed by my client and the witness, what would my client even contribute to this plan? From what you said, this plot was completely carried out by Lord Haroldson and his familiar. Well, the glass. He would have needed a powerful mage like the defendant to break the sword's display case and stage the robbery. So her contribution to the murder was breaking some glass. Can you prove that my client shattered the display case? And can you prove that she did so knowing that it would somehow lead to her father's death? You might have gotten a little too eager to prove Harold's guilt. The physical evidence against my client was almost non-existent in the first place. Meanwhile, it seems that the prosecution has just brought forward physical evidence that implicates Lord Haroldson. Physical evidence is supported by his own testimony. There has to be some explanation for this. Cuthbert, didn't you ask me something yesterday? If my client didn't kill the victim, then who did? I suppose I should say thank you for finding the answer. Darn it, all you did was make it more difficult to prove your case. But Harold has to be involved in this. You weren't wrong about that. Only Eugene would be small enough to traverse the air vents. So maybe Harold wasn't involved, but Eugene was, possibly. I don't know. So isn't there anything else you can use? With the threat of indictment, Harold must be stressed. It's gotten you out of tight spots before. Maybe you can find the evidence in his mind. You can use every trick you have, Cuthbert. It won't help you. Ignore her. Calm your mind and focus the Eye of Horus on him. You have to find something, anything, that might tie the murder to Beatrice.
Naught can remain concealed.
All right, empowered eye. All right, so let's ask about the sort of spell eating first. I can't believe that one of my artifacts was used to commit a murder. It's completely disrespectful to the culture and history behind it. What? He's speaking as if he truly had no hand in this. That can't be true, can it? Yeah, I think Harold is innocent. I want to project the bracelet. So, the armbands of intellect are still missing, but I inspected it closely before the Lord's ball. They were still there when I moved them to Frega Manor. Someone must have stolen it during the ball. Right, you never did find out what happened to the armbands. Could there seriously be a second thief here? Alright, let's see. Beatrice Frege was seen speaking with Aster de Wyverngaard and Alaric de Wyverngaard during the Lord's Ball. She spent the entire night speaking with them. She was also accounted for before the sword of spell eating was reported missing. Lucio Steelwind asked her if several members of the King's Guard can confirm this. What? Why am I thinking about this? My mind can't be going already, can it? Alright, so he's not thinking about her. What about Harrelson's security? The artifacts on display at the Lord's Ball were protected by layers of abjuration spells. Alright, let's see what he thinks about this. Not one, but 2 artifacts were stolen during the Lord's Ball. I never expected anyone to completely bypass my security like this. Alright, so he definitely is. I feel like he's definitely innocent. Let's see what else we have. Do we have the lockdown? Alright, let's see. Young Tyrion's argument makes sense. I couldn't have heard Eugene when the lockdown was active. What is going on here? Alright. What else do we have? Rats in the vents? What about... He doesn't know about Tracker's lockdown. What about the familiar bond spell? Eugene, just what were you doing that night? Did you really wield the sword, if only for a brief moment? Wait, he should have known exactly where Eugene was that night. Why would his thoughts say that? Was he not really his familiar? I wonder. Alright, let's see. Eugene. Alright, so he's thinking about that. What else do we have? Miriam. How about Beatrice? It's truly a shame that Beatrice was driven to flee from her own family. If only I'd introduced myself to her, perhaps we could have found a solution together. He doesn't know Beatrice? But how? She planned the murder with him. Unless... What? What's going on? He's speaking as if he really had no hand in this. You can guard yourself from the Eye of Horus, but you can't lie to it. And if that's true, were you wrong about Harold's involvement? Is he really innocent? See anything, Cuthbert? Oh, she's so smug. Your Honor, it's clear that the prosecution has nothing left to argue. There's very little evidence implicating my client, and there's a far more likely suspect in front of us right now. Yes, I must agree, Miss Tamora. At the very least, I see no reason to prolong this trial any longer. Wait! Beatrice couldn't have personally done this. Discounting the fact that she's completely blind, she was with the 2 princes for most of the night. So who actually killed William Frege in his study? Think about this. The reason why you suspected Harold in the first place was because of what Tracker said. Tracker's vocabulary is primitive and limited. He used the word rat to describe small creatures that hide and act suspiciously. But even if it wasn't an actual rat, it still couldn't have been human, right? You're right. it would have been a small animal. A small animal with the strength and dexterity to traverse a small air vent while holding a sword. Tracker definitely saw some kind of animal. Was it someone else's familiar? Who did Tracker see in the air vent? Did he see Eugene? He had to have seen Eugene, right? Because Eugene had the sword? Right, it had to have been Eugene. Tracker found the sword in that hallway, and Eugene couldn't have communicated with Harold unless the sword protected both of them from the anti-magic field. But why? Did Eugene just happen to be in that hallway? That also doesn't explain why the sword of spell eating was even there. No, Tracker said that Eugene came out of the air vent on the other side of the hallway. Then he fled into the air vent on the other side. Even for a small monkey, those vents would be extremely cramped. He wouldn't have entered those vents out of mere curiosity. Why was Eugene in the air vents? You now know that Harold didn't participate in the murder, but did he know about what Eugene was doing that night? Was acting, was not acting. Harold, Tracker, Beatrice, Eugene. Harold was not acting to frame Beatrice, to frame Harold of their own free will. Oh, wait. Eugene was not acting of their own free will, right? No. You can't say for sure why Eugene was there. But it's unlikely that Harold even knew about it. Okay, so because of blackmail, to frame Beatrice, to frame Harold of their own free will, or Eugene was acting of their own free will. Right, okay. So Eugene was acting on his own free will. That's the explanation that makes the most sense. But how and why? Harold is the only person that is magically connected to Eugene. But also, Harold seems to like to give him his privacy, so I guess he had his own agenda. And even if Beatrice somehow got Eugene to follow her orders, she wouldn't have been able to direct his actions telepathically. Beatrice couldn't use any other conjuration spells to contact him either. She was also in the anti-magic field when she was with Aster. So if Eugene was the one who murdered William Frege, was he acting independently? No, that can't be possible. How could Eugene have carried out this plan independently? He had the bracelet, right? The plan required knowledge of Frege's Manor's ventilation system. It also involved murdering William during the lockdown and destroying his will. Eugene might be smart for a monkey, but a normal monkey wouldn't have known how to identify and destroy William's will. Even if Beatrice had somehow trained him to do all this beforehand, Eugene stole the armbands of intellect? No, I think Beatrice stole them, right? Who stole it? Beatrice had to have stolen it, right? Or... Okay, it's either Beatrice or Eugene. Why would Eugene wouldn't have stolen it. Right? Eugene must have been acting independently. So he stole the armbands of intellect? Okay. Alright. Eugene stole the sword of spell eating? Alright. Alright, so Beatrice wore... Oh, Eugene wore... Okay, I didn't see wore. Eugene wore the armbands of intellect. No, it couldn't be. I discovered that the armbands of intellect had been stolen as well. And unlike the sword of spell eating, we still haven't found the armbands. You look at the glass case where the armbands used to be. The thief didn't shatter the glass. Exactly. Moreover, the armbands were actually replaced with a very well-made replica. Magical locks on the case can be disabled. How are they normally disabled? They can be turned on and off using a spoken password. How many people know this password? Only myself. I personally oversee the transport of these items when they're moved. Only Harold knows the password, but someone could have overheard him saying it. Someone that's constantly looking over his shoulder. Alright. You've made some ridiculous statements in the past, but there's no way the judge would even entertain this theory. Alright? You have to be smart about this. Your Honor, I think there's one more witness that can clear up this discrepancy once and for all. Oh boy, are we about to call a monkey to the stand? I believe he can prove the prosecution's case to the court. Really? I frankly find that hard to believe. Please trust me, Your Honor. There's an element to this we all aren't seeing. And it's one that no one will believe. What do you have planned now? Very well. I'll give you one last chance, Mr. Cuthbert. But know that if your next witness fails to unveil any new information, I won't hesitate to end this trial. I understand, Your Honor. So I'm going to need you to bear with me for a moment. Why? Your Honor? I knew it. The defense calls Eugene Haroldson to the stand. The looks. Hey, Toad, welcome in. He's like, what have I done? Never mind. I retract my earlier statement. I'll be passing my verdict. Wait, just bear with me for a moment. Mr. Cuthbert, I should find you in contempt for even suggesting this. Do you honestly think I'll allow a monkey to give testimony in my courtroom? Yeah, it sounds pretty out there, even for us. I'd like to remind the court of the nature of Harold's bond with Eugene. Eugene is a familiar. This means that Harold Haroldson can speak with him telepathically. But this is absolutely... Show me the law that says an animal can't give testimony, Your Honor. It may be unprecedented, but it's not against the law. Very well. Your Honor, you can't be serious right now. Are you actually going along with this? Oh, Miss Tamora, I'm looking for any possible reason not to entertain this. But Mr. Cuthbert has a point. There are no laws against his proposal. So I suppose I must oblige his frankly insane actions for now. She knows her case is ruined now. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's not as if this will reveal anything. I can't believe I'm saying this, but, bailiff, please escort Lord Harrelson's monkey to the stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation to the court. I could do without the sarcasm, Miss Tamara. Eugene is Eugene. Eugene Monkey. Bailiff, make sure the stenographer gets Haroldson's translations. You can't see the armband on him right now. He must be at his normal intelligence right now. Although, how would he even wear them? Perhaps he held them in his hands? They only require physical contact, after all. Eugene, did you steal from the gallery on the night of the murder? Ooh, gaga. Eugene never steal from Harold. Eugene respect Harold. And then you'll have no problem testifying about where you went during the Lord's Ball. I can't believe I let you convince me to permit this. It sounds so stupid. Oh boy, the witness testimony. Eugene explore new house. Eugene look for a new place to play. Eugene also look for spiders. Spiders, yum yum. You think Eugene steal armbands of intellect? Eugene never stole from Harold. Harold friend. Eugene always Harold's friend. Ape strong together. So we never mentioned the armbands of intellect, though. Wow, you did it, Cuthbert. You blew this case wide open. Is this really going to help us? Look, you'll just have to trust me on this. I trust you? That didn't sound like it turned into a question at the end. He's finally lost it. All right. Eugene explore house. Eugene look for a new place to play. Let's press. But Harold is an associate of House Frege. Surely you visited Frege Manor before that night. Manor constantly changes. William always doing renovations. There's always a new discovery to be made. You suppose that makes sense. William certainly had the gold for it. Anyways, what else did you do that night, Eugene? Eugene also looked for spiders. Yum yum. What does interpret mean? Do you enjoy eating spiders? Spiders good. Rich in nutrients. Why is he mad about that? Wait, really? Some cultures in Eastern kingdoms eat roasted crickets. Okay. So yeah, some cultures, okay. I've tried them. They're actually not bad if they're prepared correctly. I don't think I could ever be that adventurous. I agree, Tyrion. Can we please stay on topic? You think Eugene steal armbands of intellect?
Objection!
Wait a minute. Eugene, I asked you before if you stole anything from Harold's gallery. Eugene, no. Eugene would never steal from Harold. Cuthbert, don't waste our time by having him repeat that statement. That's the thing, Miss Tamora. That's not the same statement he made in his testimony. I asked the witness if he stole an artifact from the gallery. I never mentioned the armbands of intellect. Ooh? What are you talking about now? The witness lacks the understanding to differentiate between the artifacts. It was clearly just a simple mistake. It was not the fact that he named the wrong artifact, Miss Tamora. It's the fact that he used its actual name. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean, Mr. Cuthbert. Your Honor, animals can't speak the same way that humans do. Even when a telepathic link is established, their vocabulary is extremely limited. Right. Tracker called the sword of spell eating a stick before. It was hard to understand what he really meant. Exactly. So that raises the question. How did Eugene know they were called the armbands of intellect? Wait, how did he know? The armbands were stolen during the Lord's Ball and replaced with a well-made replica. Is Eugene wearing them right now? If he had worn the armbands when he was sneaking around through the fence, he would have never had the opportunity to put them back. And the armbands are still missing. So, Eugene is wearing the armbands at this moment. It can't be. Is he really? The armbands were designed to be worn by humans, so Eugene couldn't wear them on his arms. So where would he wear them? He's wearing them around his belly, right? You initially thought that he carried them in his hands, but there's a far simpler explanation. Eugene, do you still maintain that you didn't steal the armbands of intellect? Eugene told you already. Eugene never steals from Harold. Then I suppose you wouldn't mind taking off your hat. Oh, he's got him on his head? Okay. Are you serious right now? You don't think he's wearing them right now, do you? It's the only thing that makes sense. The armbands were taken on the night of the murder, and they are still missing. If Eugene did indeed steal the armbands that night, he would have never had the opportunity to return them. He had no choice but to continue wearing them until the investigation was over. This is absolutely ridiculous. You are spinning a fairy tale. Do you honestly expect us to believe that a monkey increased its intellect beyond human limits? I mean, that's exactly what the armbands do. If I'm wrong, the witness can easily refute my theory by removing his hat. He's not going to? Well, what's it going to be, Eugene? You see him fully break character, and he slowly but silently lifts his hat. No, you can't be serious. Everyone can see it plainly. He's wearing the armbands like a crown around his tiny head. From out of his hat, you see him pull out something else. Well done, Mr. Cuthbert. I shouldn't have underestimated you. Are you serious? This is probably a blessing in disguise. I don't think I could bear debasing myself any longer. why is he smoking? I have no. I don't know. He's trying to be the detective like Sherlock Holmes, I guess. I don't know.
Objection!
Objection, Your Honor. On what grounds, Miss Tamora? On what grounds? Everything about this situation is objectionable. It's downright absurd. Is he seriously Beatrice's accomplice? He owns her. But, Miss Tamora, we can't deny what's clearly in front of us. I was not ready for today. How is he even talking right now? Scholars believe that humans and apes evolved from a common ancestor. Perhaps all apes can speak the common language under the right circumstances. Evolved, please. I've observed your society. I think calling humanity evolved is being quite generous. This can't be happening. Well, are you all done gawking at me like a bunch of simpletons? Simpletons? Wait a minute. It's quite difficult to separate myths from actual historical accounts. Right. I remember encountering a similar problem at the Imperial Academy. You must be quite dedicated to your studies. They let this simpleton into the Imperial Academy? Was that his thought, not Harold's thought? Rude, but you suppose that can't be helped. Every insulting thought that you've seen from Harold, they weren't Harold's thoughts at all. Okay, so we were picking up Eugene's thoughts. Okay. They were Eugene's thoughts. He's been wearing the armband since you first met. But I still don't understand. Why would you even take the armbands in the first place? I'll admit that the Lord's ball was one of many occasions. The first time I touched them was due to sheer chance. You put them on by accident? He can't only talk to dogs, I guess. Apparently, yeah. My unawakened self was enamored by its glittering sheen. I merely wanted to touch them, but when I first held them in my hands, I experienced a sense of clarity that I'd never felt before. I was afraid of what I'd experienced, so I left them alone. But as I returned to my primitive lifestyle, I couldn't stop thinking about what I felt that day. You were hooked. I wouldn't quite phrase it like that, but I suppose you're not wrong. I already knew the password to Harold's vault, so I'd come in from time to time and indulge in the armband's power. But the more time I spent with my awkward, awakened intellect, the more I craved its power when I had to put them away. And that's when you made the replica. While no one was watching, I devised a plan to discreetly take the armbands. Harold would have eventually discovered that they were stolen, but he would have concluded that a noble from the Lord's ball took them, because of the pressure that he was receiving from the crown. I'm not proud of what I've done, but I never expected things to reach this point. I didn't expect someone to steal the sword of spell eating as well, and I certainly didn't expect a murder to happen that night. So you still maintain that you're innocent? Of course I do. I stole the armbands, but I did not murder William Frege, nor did I take the sword of spell eating. Allow me to elaborate. Oh boy. Now we're going to get a real witness testimony. I'll admit I took the armbands and replaced them with the replica, but I was not the crook who stole the sword of spell eating. The thefts were completely different from one another. The display case for the sword was completely shattered. I spotted the sword when I was exploring the manor. It was lying in the middle of a hallway. I wondered why such an important artifact would be lying there, so I took a closer look to inspect it. That's when I heard Harold calling out to me telepathically. The sword must have protected me and Harold from the anti-magic field. I wanted to take the sword and return it, but a wild dog chased me away from the scene. He has a point. He didn't need to shatter the display case of the sword. The judge over here in the case is like, what? Yeah. Yeah, he already knew the passwords. But Tracker said that Eugene was the one who dropped the sword. Furthermore, he escaped into the air vent that led into William's study. His actions that night were definitely not as innocent as his testimony implies. He must have lied somewhere. Alright. Oh boy. And everyone else is like, accepted? Yeah. I'll admit, I took the armbands and replaced them with a replica, but I was not the crook who stole the sword of spell eating. You stole the armbands by using Harold's spoken password, am I correct? Yes, I sit on his shoulder most of the time. He obviously never suspected what I do, so it was a simple matter of listening to him when he transported the artifacts to Frega Manor. And can I assume that you knew the passwords for the other displays as well? I do, and I can easily demonstrate it. You doubt that he'd lie about that when you can easily check it. Even so, you already lied about not stealing the armbands. Why should we believe you now? The answer to that lies in the physical evidence. Yeah, he's probably not a strong enough mage. Alright. The thefts were completely different from one another. The display case for the sword was completely shattered. How do we know that you didn't shatter the glass to cover your tracks? Harold's password nullifies the locks. They don't nullify the magic that protects the glass. Harold told you himself, didn't he? Only a powerful mage could have shattered the reinforced glass. And as a familiar, magic can be cast through you. Only Harold can cast magic through me. I can't cast any spells myself. And even if I could, Harold's spell compendium does not have a spell that's powerful enough for that. His logic is sound, but if what he's saying is true, who shattered the glass? Anyways, I spotted the sword when I was exploring the manor. It was lying in the middle of the hallway. So, we have Tracker's testimony. Let's see, does it say anything here? When this happened, the rat supposedly dropped... What about this?
Objection!
Okay, we have Tracker's testimony. The judge is going to be like, kill me now. Eugene, I'm sure you're well aware of this, but the best way to lie is to hide a false detail within many truths. And what are you trying to insinuate, Mr. Cuthbert? You said that you were heading from the terrace to the gallery. Did you take any detours? Of course not. With the armbands nullified, my intelligence was slowly fading. I wanted to return to Harold as soon as possible. Witness, I'd like for you to take a look at this floor map of Frega Manor. This is the location where that wild dog found the sword of spell eating. Alright. So tell me, Eugene, how did you spot the sword of spell eating when it was hidden in the hallway north of Beatrice's room? That's... Why are you nitpicking such an insignificant statement? He probably just got distracted and went down the wrong hallway. Mr. Mora, Eugene came from the rooftop garden, and he was adamant that he went directly to the gallery to reunite with Harold. Even if his intellect was muddled, he was intent on reuniting with his worried companion. He definitely took the direct route, but if he did, he would never have been able to see into that hallway. I see your point, Mr. Cuthbert, but what does this mean? It means that the witness lied about where he was before he discovered the sword of spell eating. He wasn't coming from the rooftop garden. He came from the air vents in that specific hallway. Uh-oh, is he afraid about it? So why were you in that hallway, Eugene? You lied in your testimony. Was it because you wanted to hide what you were really doing that night? Admit it, Eugene. You snuck through the air vents to avoid detection. Then you used the air vents in that hallway to break into William's study. After that, you murdered him using his letter opener, didn't you? That's not what I went there to do. What's a monkey gonna do in prison, right? No, I didn't mean. He just implicated himself. Order! Order in the court! He's like, this has turned into a zoo. Witness, is this true? Did you break into William Frega's study during the lockdown? Well, you see, y- yes, I did enter his study, but not for the reason you think. William Frega was already dead when I got there. What? What did you just say? It's true. Do you honestly expect us to believe a story like that? How could someone else have killed the victim before you got there? Tracker took the sword of spell eating, and you were the only intelligent creature that could walk through the air vents. I understand how unbelievable and suspicious it sounds. Why do you think I lied in the first place? But it's the truth, Mr. Cuthbert. You have to believe me. You don't see any contradicting thoughts to the eye, but that hardly absolves him of guilt. But could he really be telling the truth? If that's true, that only brings back to the one question you've been asking since this all began. Who really did this? Well, it has to be Beatrice, right? Okay, Eugene, let's assume you're telling the truth. Do you actually believe me? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You're still my only suspect for this. But I know better than anyone about jumping to conclusions, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now. I see. However, if you want to absolve yourself, I need you to tell me about what you really saw that night. There might be something, anything, that might point to who really did this. Very well. I'll tell you what I saw. Although I doubt you'll believe me. All right. Didn't we still have... There was some trace of magic at the body, so we gotta keep that in mind too. I discreetly made my way to that hallway through another air vent. I exited the air vent in the hallway and tried to leap to the other side. I'm not sure it was my waning intelligence or my desperation, but I collided with something that I didn't see. I fell to the ground and found the sword of spell eating laying next to me. I wanted to retrieve the sword, but that wild dog forced me to retreat. After that, I continued to make my way to the study. Was it Eris? Was she invisible? Can we finally lay a crime at her feet? And that's when I found William Frega. He was dead on the floor and lying in a pool of blood. Yeah, probably doubtful. But I wonder if Beatrice has invisibility, maybe? I don't know. And as if I were blessed by the Scaled Lord himself, I found the will that he was drafting. So I destroyed it. Probably because he was trying to draft it so that it would write out the museum. Like, that's surely what the will said. It said that the museum was not going to be supported anymore, right? Frankly, Mr. Harrelson, I find that story very difficult to believe. I assumed as much, but you know what they say. Truth is stranger than fiction. Isn't it more likely that you murdered the victim? You're clearly trying to cover up what you did by saying that he was already dead. Honestly, I really don't know what to think. Is he really telling the truth? I think he collided with an invisible form. I discreetly made my way to that hallway through another air vent. I exited the air vent in that hallway and tried to leap to the other side. But why were you there in the first place? It all began when William Frega got into an argument with Harold. That cur wanted to defund the prestigious Haraldson Hall of History. I knew a man like William probably had many secrets, so I devised a plan to break into his study and find something that I could use to blackmail him. As you know, there's a small air vent in that hallway, and it connected to William's study on the ground floor. I wasn't aware that William was planning to stay in his study all night, so I thought I could look through his documents without anyone seeing me. You suppose that does make sense, but is he really telling the truth? What happened when you tried to leap to the other air vent, Eugene? I'm not sure if it was my waning intelligence or my desperation, but I collided with something I didn't see. So do we have an invisibility spell? Invisibility? One of the highest forms of illusion magic, the spell makes the target creature or object completely invisible. When invisible, the target will be completely transparent and undetectable visually. If targeting a creature, the spell will also affect anything that the creature is wearing or holding.
Objection!
I don't think... Okay, so it's not going to take it. Your Honor is clear? Okay. It's not contradictory. Alright, let's just press him. I thought monkeys were extremely dexterous. Are you just clumsy? I have impeccable dexterity. It sounds like you struck a nerve there. I must have been muddled from losing the armband's magic. I fell to the ground and found the sword of spell-eating laying next to me. How did you know it was the sword of spell-eating? When I held it in my hands, I felt my intelligence return. But I also heard Harold calling out to me telepathically. He was clearly growing worried, so I knew I needed to move quickly. I wanted to retrieve the sword, but that wild dog forced me to retreat. After that, I continued to make my way to the study. Did this wild dog have a white coat of fur? He did. Are you acquainted with him? Something like that. Well, next time you meet him, tell him that I don't appreciate being called a rat. I am a proud orangutan. You can understand him? I picked up a little of the canine language throughout my life. I am also fluent in squirrel and pigeon. I can also speak owl, but it's barely conversational. As much as you want to test the validity of those claims, they're not relevant to the case. What happened when you entered the study? And that's when I found William Frege. He was dead on the floor, lying in a pool of blood. Alright, let's see if we have anything. Traces of illusion magic. Alright, I don't think we have anything. Let's just press. It seems awfully convenient that he was murdered before you arrived. I know how it may seem, but I'm telling you the truth. And do you have any explanation for how the assailant broke into the study without the sword? I unfortunately do not. Please, it's obvious that your testimony doesn't match up with the evidence. Whoever did this either entered through the vents or they used the sword to nullify the lock. And your own testimony states that the sword was abandoned in that hallway. Doesn't match up with what you thought happened, but does it really contradict the evidence you have? Anyways, what did you do when you discovered the body? I knew it was only a matter of time before someone discovered the body, so I quickly searched the room for something I could use. And as if blessed by the Scale Lord himself, I found the will that he was drafting, so I destroyed it. So you were the one that took the well. I've been trying to find it. What did it say? I was pressed for time, so I didn't read the entire documents, but I found an order to the executor to defund the Haraldson Hall of History. Since he went out of his way to specify that on the current copy, I concluded that his former will didn't have this addendum. So you could save Harold's museum by making sure it never got submitted for probate. Anyways, do you have the will with you? My apologies. I crumpled up the will into a ball and ate it. I then left the room before my intelligence was completely gone. Ugh. You were really hoping to see if William followed through on his threat to disinherit Beatrice. Alright. It's hard to believe, but you just can't see any direct contradictions. Should you press him more? What if he's telling the truth? If Eugene did do this, your next course of action is clear. Although that still wouldn't explain how Beatrice fits into this. You recall something that Tracker said to you. Tracker, you said you had to smell to see where the rat was? And when he dropped his stick, you were finally able to see him? Does this mean you couldn't visually see him before he fell down? Yeah, Tracker couldn't see the rat with his eyes, so Tracker used his nose to see it. Eugene was invisible. Okay. Eugene, when you were carrying out your plan, did you turn yourself invisible somehow? No, I hardly had the means to. And even if I had convinced Harold to cast a spell on me, he doesn't know how to cast invisibility. Very few mages do. Right, you recall Eris saying the same thing during the Nightgrave trials. Only a master of illusion magic could do that. That's how you first thought Beatrice was involved. But if Eugene is truly innocent, did she turn someone else invisible? But if that's true, you're right back to where you started again. No, think through this. Eugene's testimony fills in a blank that's been missing. I fell to the ground and found the sword of spell eating laying next to me. How did you know it was the sword of spell eating? When I held it in my hands, I felt my intellect return. But I also heard Harold calling out to me telepathically. He was clearly growing worried, so I knew I needed to move quickly. I wanted to retrieve the sword. That wild dog forced me to retreat. After that, I continued to make my way to the study. And what happens when you cross-reference that with Tracker's testimony? That's when Tracker smelled flying rat. Tracker could smell where Rat was, so Tracker borked at him. Tracker must have scared Rat because he fell into the floor and dropped his stick. How did the sword of spell eating end up in that hallway? So where does that lead us? Alright, so somebody dropped the sword in the hallway. So was it Eugene? Was it Beatrice? The thief? Yeah, it was the thief. So the thief dropped the sword in the hallway. But how does that make sense? Did they hide the sword there like you originally thought? No. The hallway was close to the gallery. There were plenty of better places to hide the sword. If it weren't for Tracker taking it, it would have been found even sooner. The thief must have accidentally dropped the sword there. That can only mean one thing. Why was the thief in that hallway? The thief was sneaking through the vents? Through the hallway? Through the manor? No, the hallway leads toward the bath. You can think of very little reason why the thief would have been walking there, but there's another explanation for why they were in that specific location. So, it's not the vents, is it? Okay, I guess it was. The thief was also sneaking through the air vents. That's the only reason why they would be there. But that would imply that the thief was as small as Eugene. Could it have been another familiar? And if so, why didn't Eugene notice them? Wait. Because they're invisible, right? I'm not sure if it was my waning intelligence or just my desperation, but I collided with something that I did see. Does Beatrice have a familiar? Is that how she gets along? Because remember the compulsion thing also, or whatever, there was a spell that required clapping of hands. He collided with something he didn't see. In other words, it was something that wasn't visible to him. And as a master of illusion magic, Beatrice is one of the few people at the ball that could cast invisibility. Beatrice would never trust anyone enough to work together like this. But she's completely blind. She wouldn't have much of a choice. Who has the wolf? Leif. She's this girl here. She's the one who has the wolf as a familiar. Even so, she's not the type of person to trust her accomplices to stay quiet. She'd find a way to carry out a plan herself, and she'd only employ someone else's help if she had full control of them. Have you been approaching this situation incorrectly the entire time? Through the eye, you knew that Beatrice was involved somehow, but you just assumed she was one part of a larger plot. The breaking of the glass and the casting of invisibility, these were elements you knew she was involved with, but it never really fit together. Not unless she was the one pulling the strings the entire time. And there's only one way she could be in control the entire time. What did Beatrice use to commit the murder? A familiar, right? So, let's see. What do we have? We have... Was there something? I felt like there was something else. What was the clapping? Clap both hands. What was she using? Was it that? No. You've been underestimating Beatrice's role in what happened that night. Everyone assumed Beatrice couldn't perform her actions due to her blindness. Alright, so it is going to be the familiar, right? Right. A couple of memories flooded into your mind. A familiar is a creature that a mage has formed a magical contract with. With that contract, our souls are bonded. I can speak with him telepathically. I could even see through his eyes and cast my spells through him if I wanted to. Really? I never knew a spell like that existed. It's quite rare. Very few mages take the time to learn how to cast it. Hi, I'm Tyrion Cuthbert. I'm Miss Tamara's ward. You extend out your hand to shake hers. She has an aristocratic air to her, so you hope you're not being too informal. Instead of taking your hand, she claps her hands together and takes a deep breath. Oh, what? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. It's a bit of a habit of mine. Oh. Nevertheless, she firmly shakes your hand. I've heard much about you, Mr. Cuthbert. My name is Beatrice. You didn't know that she was blind back then, so you barely even noticed it. But how did she know that you were holding out your hand? Well, do you have any other questions for me? If you're wrong about this, Beatrice will surely be acquitted. And after that, the Inquisition will turn their attention to Harold and Eugene. But there's only one way to know for sure. Your Honor, the prosecution has no further questions for the current witness. He is dismissed. What? I see. You have something else planned, don't you? Yeah, and I actually need your help. Really? Tell her about your plan. Really? I feel like you're making some big assumptions there. Wouldn't the Inquisition check for something like that? I know. It's the best play we have. Do you remember what Steelwind said yesterday? But the moments the guards saw the body, one of them cast Detect Magic. With that spell, they would have seen any invisible people hiding in this room. Wait, you can use Detect Magic like that? Of course, it's standard procedure. Like all spells, invisibility leaves traces of magic on the person it's cast on. So mages can use Detect Magic as a way to see through invisibility. If everything goes the way I think it will, you'll be able to confirm its location. Once you do that, you just need to reveal it to everyone. All right, I'll follow your lead then. So, Mr. Cuthbert, how do we proceed? Your previous witness brought about more revelations than I could have ever guessed. However, you still haven't given a substantial explanation about how the murder occurred or who actually did it. I understand that, Your Honor, but it will all make sense after I call my next witness. Another witness. He's like, what are you going to call now? Are you going to call, like, the sheep from the garden? What's going to be next on the docket? I understand your hesitance, Your Honor, but everything that we've learned throughout these trials is finally coming together. And this final witness will tie it all together in a perfect knot. Your Honor, the prosecution calls Beatrice Frege to the stand. Oh, the drama. Oh, boy. Seriously, Cuthbert, you went through all that trouble just to end up calling my client to the stand? You and your client have the right to refuse, Miss Tamara, but I wonder how that reflects on your client's character. It doesn't really matter. She's already standing here with Miss Tamara. You can carry out your plan regardless of what she decides to do. But it will have much more impact if you can bait her into lying on the stand. My client says that she's willing to testify. However, I would like to propose a short recess. With these new developments, I'm sure you can understand that we have much to discuss. I see no reason not to grant the defense request. Is this really okay? If we give them time to prep, they might realize what we're doing. I know, but I don't think we have anything to worry about. You've been building a psychological profile of Beatrice since this case began. It's hard to read her expression and emotions, even with the Eye of Horus. She keeps herself guarded and keeps her true intentions unknown. She's powerful, more powerful than her father ever cared to admit. Despite this, he tried to control her and put her inside a cage. But Beatrice Frege would never live in a cage. She wanted freedom and control, and she would do whatever it took to get it. You're sure that the accident that blinded her didn't help things. When everything was said and done, she abandoned everything, her wealth, her status, her family. She could have waited. She could have gritted her teeth until it was her turn to lead House Frege. If she was willing, she could have even secretly pushed her father past the gates of death herself. But she couldn't bear to live like that, even temporarily. You have no idea why this is how she chose to do that. Perhaps it had something to do with their meeting. But you do know one thing. Beatrice Frege will never put herself in a position of vulnerability. If you endanger her freedom, she will make sure she can see who she's up against. In the interest of giving the defense time to deliberate, we will be taking an extended recess. Court is adjourned. Oh boy. Let's see. As you were exiting the courtroom, you sent Celeste to do some reconnaissance. It should be similar to when she scanned Valentina during the Nightgrave trial. Tyrion! Celeste, were you able to see it? Yeah, it's definitely there, and it sits on her shoulder most of the time. So she keeps it close to her. That's good to know. She has a bird or something, doesn't she? Or a bat or something. It looks kind of weird, though, but I've never used detect magic like this before. Well, you doubt that someone like her would choose a conventional animal, especially for something like this. Cuthbert. Miss Tamora. There's something I need to show you. Preferably alone. Celeste gives you a concerned look, but you nod to show her it's okay. She moves to sit on the bench where she can keep an eye on Beatrice. Okay, lead the way. All right. So, you guys are going to hate it, but we're going to pick up there next time. We'll do the finale next time because I have a feeling it's going to be an epic finale. So, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. What are our theories right now? So, obviously, Beatrice did it. She has a familiar, obviously. What do we think it is? Could it be something not conventional? Well, a bird might be considered conventional, right? But if it actually did the killing, wouldn't it have to have dexterity, right? So maybe it's not a bird. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know what it would be. Something that that she could. I don't know. I'm not a hamster. I don't know. It's got to have a way to actually grab something to kill him with, right? So because it had to have done the stabbing in the neck. So I wonder what it would be. The only thing I can think of that has like, opposable fingers, a chinchilla. I don't know, maybe. Or if it was flying and Eugene was jumping through the hall and he whammed into it, I don't know. And then obviously it's small enough to fit through the vents and sit on her shoulder. So is it a rat? Is it literally a rat? Was Tracker being completely 100% legit when he said it was a rat? But then how would a rat, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So that will be in the next episode, the finale, if you will. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, guys. If you want to watch live with us, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/Liara27. I post my schedule in the About section, and if you want to see which games I'm playing that day, I post those on twitter.com/Liara27. I hope that you guys will join me in the next one, and until then, bye.